All right, welcome to the NZ Everyday Investor. So we're going to talk today about Hatch Invest because it's been approximately 9 months or so. 11 months, not that you're counting, right?
I only said that because we had a celebration last night. We've had some new team members, and I was just thinking in 1 month, we're going to be a year old.
That's amazing. That's so fast.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, do you want to describe really briefly what Hatch is? Maybe we'll start with you, Chris, and just tell us what is Hatch, and then go from there.
Awesome.
Cool.
Hatch is an investing platform. For the moment, we've started by giving access to the US share market, so Kiwis can easily and affordably access and invest in some of the world's most recognizable brands and funds in the world.
Awesome. Well said. Good elevator pitch right there.
Thanks.
And in terms of what you guys have done in almost 12 months, Natalie, do you want to just give us the lowdown on a couple of the key milestones that you've done since inception?
Yeah, so when we started, we have a very manual first approach. So we've done a lot of automation behind the scenes to make it faster. So now when you do sign up, you can get started in 3 minutes online immediately.
The way that you're saying that is you're pounding home the fact that I haven't signed up yet. That's the little subtext that people might not be picking up.
We've also passed some really cool milestones. We welcomed our 10,000th customer a couple of months ago now, maybe. We have over $30 million invested through us now. We have a whole bunch of new features since last time we spoke to you. Watch list, a lot of things to make it easier for people to get up and running and start their investing journey in the US, and plenty more in the pipeline.
And so in terms of what you see happening in the next 12 months, almost, what do you see happening?
So we're probably breaking it down into a couple of streams of work for us. So obviously, like you said, the vision is a lot clearer now as far as we've got something in market. We understand our audience a lot more and how they behave and how they'd like to behave. So responding to that, we work very closely with our customers to design Hatch. We are building out a lot of tools to make it easier to get started investing, a lot of tools for more sophisticated, savvy investors to feel more comfortable making more investments and having the tools in place to make the kind of investments they want to make. As far as things like stop loss orders, I know that's a slightly technical term, but that sort of thing appeals to a large chunk of our audience. Yeah. And then also looking at what's next for the platform. So we're starting to really dive into several areas of what could come next.
Yeah, because there are a few, and I think it's really we've solved a problem, and that's what we knew we'd start with that, and a relatively niche problem, to be fair, in New Zealand, being kind of the first mover in this space. But what are the extensions of this problem, but also whole new problems that we can solve in the investing space?
Well, and let's talk about before Hatch was there. How could I buy shares in Amazon?
You would have to go through either a very technical trading platform, an international one, where you'd really have to learn the detailed elements of trading.
More like the tools as opposed to the function of investing. And about Amazon, it would be learning an entirely new complex tool system in order to do that.
And very intimidating. Or you would go through a bank in New Zealand and pay a minimum of $90 a trade plus foreign exchange fees with a lot of hidden stuff in there. So basically, you would have to have a lot of money to get started and a lot of time to invest in learning the tools.
So the disadvantage of how that system worked is that you had to have a lot more money to do it because you couldn't buy a fraction of Amazon. You need to put a lot in, but the more you put in, the more you're getting nailed on the foreign exchange bit and all the other stuff that you might not see.
Plus so really, it was for those that were really serious about getting into the largest, most liquid share markets in the world, but also those that had a lot of money.
I want to pull up your account, Natalie, if it's okay if I show people this. And if you're watching by video, then you'll see the benefit of this. And if you're not watching by video,
you should be. We'll walk you.
Okay, so here we are. My name is Natalie now, apparently. So thank you, Natalie, for allowing me to hack into your account just briefly for this purpose. So tell me, Natalie, what are we looking at here in your account? What's that first thing that we're looking at? Obviously, it's the landing page, I guess, right?
Yeah, so this is your portfolio page. And I think the interesting thing on here is we have actually recently updated how we calculate your total returns. Okay. And that was based on a lot of feedback from people who are investing through Hatch, that most tools don't give you the ability to basically answer the question of, all the money I've put into this over the entire lifetime of using it, how much money have I made or lost?
Sure.
Most investment tools will just tell you how much you've made or lost on your current portfolio. So we thought that was a really important change, and it's had some really good feedback. So I can look at that now and say, all the money I've put in, I've made $1,100. That's which is pretty cool.
That's a decent rate of return, right?
Yeah,
Depending on what the time frame is that you start doing
yeah.
this.
Well, I mean, it's less than 11 months. So.
Obviously, it can be more than that.
And we've also added some other tools. The graph you see there, you can see your contributions as well. So you can start to see when you've put money. The little blue dotted line is the amount of money I've put in, and then how much money I've made or lost on that money. So just some really simple tools to take what we do away from the traditional finance industry approach of being very finance jargony led into just the simple things people want to know when they sign in.
So it's not vague, it's not hidden smoke and mirrors. This is your activity that you're engaging with.
Tell me how much I've put in. Tell me how much I've made. Those are the first questions we want to answer.
Right.
And also, because the US share market's open at different times from the New Zealand share markets, answering the question of when can I next expect to be able to invest my money. So that's kind of straight up there in the headline there.
That's good. So what am I looking at here then? The very first thing that comes up, are these just things that you're interested in?
This is actually something that we are in the process of updating. As Kristen mentioned before, one of the ways a lot of Hatch investors have told us they get started is by investing in things that they know.
Yeah.
So we wanted to start by grouping some things that people might be interested in. And we are completely revamping that section now. So you'll start to see some global mega trends come in. So things like the future of healthcare, gender diversity in the workplace, the cannabis industry, tech, that sort of stuff, and be able to get a really good overview of the funds you can invest in and the largest companies that play in those areas.
Wow, okay.
So that's also something that has come out of feedback from our investors of the sort of things that they want to help them get started. And when you have a wall of 3,000 options,
where do I start?
How do I get started?
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
So deposit money, that's just going to take you through, and what you can link your account.
Yeah, if you click on deposit money, it's really simple instructions. You basically just go into internet banking, or you can even go into a bank, as some people do, and just set up an automatic payment or a one-off payment into your Hatch account. It's as easy as that.
Yes.
We take care of the rest. We exchange your money into US dollars for you and deposit it into your Hatch account, ready to invest, usually by the next day.
And is it possible for me to set up regular contributions into my Hatch
Absolutely.
Yeah, we do.
And you don't get penalised for that at all. Our foreign exchange fee is just a small percentage on the amount you deposit. So if you want to deposit $1 a day, go ahead. There's no penalty for doing that.
And
if
you
want
can load up your Hatch account, and then when it reaches a certain amount, you can go on and
get in there and
invest.
go shopping.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point, I think, just to make on this, because I think that with a lot of people that are investing for the first time, often being able to see things really all the time, like when you're checking your online banking, sometimes that extra visibility kind of is counterproductive, and getting it off of your main bank account and into a platform, just that one little step is like a baby step that, this is a commitment I'm making. It's not being deployed yet. I'm not actually buying shares, but at least it's out of my bank account. And it's over here.
Paying yourself first.
And when you do deposit money into Hatch, it already is working for you. It is it's held in a money market fund, which is another sort of finance
term. Can you tell me about that a little bit? Yeah, because I'm curious as to how that's going to work. Yeah.
A money market fund is essentially a very low risk way to store cash. But what it does mean is you get dividends most of the time. Obviously not guaranteed, but at the moment it's paying out about 1% to 2%. So better than your current account, better than a lot of savings accounts. So as soon as you deposit money into Hatch, it's swept into that. They say swept. It's moved into that money market fund at the end of the day. It just sits there paying out some dividends.
In New Zealand?
In America. It's sitting in US dollars.
Sitting in USD.
Right. So if I was putting in $1 a day, is that $1 a day moving into United States US dollar account?
That's right.
Each day. So as you deposit money, it's immediately, a manual process. So once a day, exchanged into US dollars, and you have complete control over when you want to exchange it back into New Zealand dollars. So one of the questions we get asked quite a lot is, if I do sell my shares, especially when you're investing in America, how does that impact getting my money back to New Zealand. It doesn't. When you sell your shares, your money then sits there in US dollars until you decide the right time for the foreign exchange makes sense to you to bring it back. So it's completely decoupling the two, not risks, but fluctuations.
So I'm just going to go back to the platform here, and we're going to look at the Browse Shares tab. And if I scroll down, what am I looking at here?
So now you're seeing all the shares you can invest in, and this ordering by default is from our most traded to least traded. So as you can see, some of the big names are up there.
So Tesla is actually the most traded.
It's our most popular share.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And then Apple and Amazon. And if I wanted to click on just one of them, so I want to buy some shares in Facebook.
So one of the things we think is really important about the experience we offer is most New Zealanders are used to things like shopping on the internet, and most investment platforms take the experience away from that and make it quite a different look and feel. You see a lot of black screens and charts, and we think it's quite important to create an experience that's very similar to the one we're already used to. So, so shopping for shares it should be as simple as shopping for clothes. The great thing about a tool like Hatch is it works very well for people who are just starting out, as all the way through to people who are very experienced investors. So simple screens like this actually have a lot of power behind them. So for someone who's starting out, as you can see there at market price, that's if I just want to put $50 in Facebook, I can do that. And that's all I need to know. And I get the notices about when my order will go through, and I can review my order and be done. If I'm someone who wants to be a bit more technical and set the price of the order that I'm making, I can do that. So it's sort of one of those easy, simple to learn, fun to master over time. So we allow people to learn as they're going through.
That's good. You could set up an automatic payment, recurring payment going into this, build up your account. Effectively, you're just buying US dollars. While you're doing that, you're getting a rate of return while you're building up your account. And then when you feel like the time is right, you just get on there and you execute. You just buy whatever you want.
Absolutely. And I think one of the barriers to getting started with tools like Hatch is the history of the industry has given people the perception that it's a lot harder than it is now. So as you can see, we've just basically gone through the main features in Hatch. There's not a lot of complexity. There's not a lot of scary stuff in there at all. Our job is to get out of your way and allow you to build your wealth without trying to force you to learn all the technical stuff that you would have had to learn in the past.
Right.
So
Okay. What else should we look at in here?
I think the last thing we want to look at is the tax reporting. And just to give you a quick idea, because one of the things people worry about with investing, especially in the US, is tax. We do get quite a few questions about that. And what we've done in Hatch is make it as simple as possible to complete your tax reporting at the end of the financial year. So if you click on that's last year's financial reports, and you can see if you've got under $50,000 invested overseas, there's two numbers that you need to copy and paste into your tax return. It's that simple.
Is that right? So let's highlight that. There we go.
Yeah, and then if you've got over 50,000, we spent a lot of time gathering your information, so you can download those 4 spreadsheets on the right there, hand them over to your accountant, or sign up to tools like ShareSite. We love ShareSite, and we have a connection in with them where you can just upload those directly, and they will take care of figuring out your tax calculations for you. So it is not the barrier that people expect it to be. And so I think the screen is a really important one to just showcase that we spend the time to once again take the burden off you. Obviously, we're not tax advisors, so it is always worth getting your own tax advice, but we give you all the tools and details you need to be able to complete your tax returns in New Zealand.
And it is just an engineering problem. And if it's
Absolutely.
not perfect yet, and this looks pretty good to me, but if it isn't, it will get solved.
We are
anyway.
hoping to improve year upon year to do some of those calculations, that sort of stuff. But like we say, with tools like ShareSite out there, it's really, we're huge fans of partnering with other cool New Zealand tech companies and focusing on what we do best
The fin and the tech are being swapped around right now, it seems, and the tech seems to be leading things, which is pretty cool to see.
Partnerships in New Zealand for fintechs and corporates, and fintechs are really important. And the tech, you're right, has enabled that. There's, the fact that we can just connect to ShareSite, in the near future via APIs or anyone else, and just share information and make experiences more seamless and build that platform ecosystem, makes it more convenient and joyful for you as a human being to go in and get that full level of transparency.
It's sparking joy. isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
So,
We think so.
It sparks joy for us.
and I guess that brings us back to something that we talked about the first time we caught up, which is this whole open banking thing. Where are we at with that? Is there resistance? Is it moving along? Do you see the banks wanting to play that game?
Yeah, I think New Zealand is in a slightly more passive, kind of sitting in the back seat and watching what other countries are doing. And they're just saying, look, we're going to be probably consumer and industry led as opposed to regulatory led. So if you look at Australia, for example, they've taken a regulatory approach where they've actually legislated and mandated open banking. And they've done that to increase competition and better customer outcomes, and also leveled the playing fields between fintechs and the big players, as an example. But they have a very different environment there. Some of the behavior that's happened in Australia hasn't been ideal. Probably the regulators felt absolutely they had to step in to level playing field, to protect the customer, to put the customer first. So New Zealand's interesting in that we haven't been caught up in some of this undesirable behavior, but also we're pretty empowered with our finances here. Our banks are doing good things. They can do better, of course, and I think with fintechs they absolutely can do better, and innovation and all this great stuff. But I think the regulators are just saying, look, industry, work together and do some interesting stuff and put the customer first. And if you do that and you play nicely, we're not going to have to come in over top and legislate change. And so
I don't know if this is maybe others probably share this opinion, but I don't really think that regulators should be relied on for the source of innovation.
Yeah.
Right? They should be the thing that helps keep
they
people
safe,
right? They should be
promoting and supporting it, which is they are.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, the FMA in New Zealand is fantastic in that it's open door policy. Come in and talk to us about innovation.
Yeah, they have a mandate for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And in large part, the banks are really receptive to innovating and working with fintechs as well. And so I think, again, New Zealand, we can do this together. And really, just to backtrack with open banking, it's really passing the power from the incumbents and businesses to the consumer, so that me as a consumer, I own my data, I can port my data, I can plug things into third parties, so that I can solve problems in my financial life. So that might be budgeting apps, it might be payments, it might be investment, and it might be having everything in one place. We're going to need open banking for that free flow of data, but also that transfer of someone else owning my data to me owning my data, and I will give it to you in exchange for fair value of a service. It's complex. It's a bit of a spider web.
And that's all the reason why it's going to happen slowly, right? Because all those things are going to take
and we need to
time.
do it the New Zealand way. Like, we don't need to look at Australia or the US. Like, we need to do it the New Zealand way.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think we're just getting on with partnering with businesses through APIs, and also might be interesting. We're in a banking family, so what does that look like?
Yeah. So we've got Kiwi Bank, we have Kiwi Wealth, and then Hatch sits underneath of
Kiwi Wealth. That's right.
Cool.
Yeah.
How do you see this working going forward in terms of the innovative bit and open banking? Throw that in the pot as well.
Yeah.
How do you see that all kind of working for good?
I'll just start by saying, look, we're good friends with all of our Kiwi Group families. I know that Kiwi Bank is doing some fantastic stuff in the fintech space, in the innovation space, with their tech stack, moving digital as well as supporting bricks and mortar customers. So Kiwi Bank is on a really exciting journey that I think Hatch most definitely can work with them in the coming years on that, because of course where you want your banking, you want your wealth and to talk to one another. So that's pretty interesting to us. With respect to Kiwi Wealth, that's been just a really interesting corporate meet startup journey where we've kind of happened upon this rise in self-directed investing, which is exactly what Hatch is. We've recognized that people want choice. Some people want to hand their money off to be completely managed for them. Other people want to mix. Other people want to completely self-direct their portfolios. But the point is that should exist in a wealth company, is that you should be able to have that choice. And so that's what Hatch has brought to Kiwi Wealth and to that wider Kiwi family, is this trend of people wanting to do it themselves. That doesn't mean not getting advice, because you can still get advice from humans or digital or from friends, peer groups, your own research. But what it does mean is that I want control over executing and not having to pay the high fees to do that.
Good. If we were to look into the future just a little bit, and along the lines of what you were just saying before, if we think right, well, this is a great place to execute, and it's a self-directed investor who's executing. But if someone did want to get some advice or input from another source, how could that work? Are you imagining in the future maybe there's some sort of like zero concept where a user could invite maybe an advisor to share in the accessibility of seeing what they're doing? You seeing something like that happening in the future?
I mean, Hatch, we've always thought, look, platform. We know that, the likes of Amazon and these places where you can kind of go in and get lots of stuff done, and it doesn't have to be you manufacturing the product. Yeah. That's effectively a platform. And so if I can come on and execute right now, execution only, why might there not be a marketplace of tax advisors and a marketplace of advice, financial advisors, if indeed that's something that
there's demand for.
And that is helpful.
And it leads to good customer outcomes.
Yeah.
We're that's our philosophy, is we want New Zealanders to be as wealthy as they should be, and anything that we can do to partner or bring into the platform tools and services that allow people to do that is very much on the agenda.
Yeah.
And in terms of like just mixing a little bit of social media into this, do you see that you guys might build some sort of functionality where there's other people on the platform that are talking about their journey? Because I know that you guys have engaged investors directly and they're sharing their stories, which is pretty cool to see that.
Yeah.
Do you see that could take the next level and actually happen on the platform where people can
we
make
tested
comments?
that, didn't we? Like initially with Hatch, we did test, how might people share their portfolios or join together as clubs, and there's all sorts of ways you can do it. But what we thought is first, taking the minimum viable, what's the smallest thing we can do to test this, is we started a Facebook club, and so we've got a closed group Facebook Investors Club.
What's it called?
And it's called Hatch Investors Club. And when you deposit, you get an invite, and you come on in, and it's it's thousands now, I think, and they're helping one another. And so we just thought that's
cool.
That's the way to test. Do people actually want to learn from one another? Do they want to chat? And so you've got newcomers coming in there and saying, "Hey, I'm just new to this. What do you think of this?" And they're talking about a particular share or a strategy, tips, tools, all this sort of thing. The economy, Trump, and so that was kind of our first little foray into how might we test this quite cheaply. Back to your point of what might that look like if it's actually brought into the app.
Correct. If that adds value, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously pretty proposition focused. So rather than do we offer advice, we think, what is the problem people have to solve? And in this case, Investors Club has been great. And we are at that point now, like we say, we have 10,000 customers now. When we last spoke to you, we didn't have nearly that many. How can we expand on that? And what does the next step look like for that? Is that breaking it down into different groups so that different people can talk to and share amongst each other? Does it make sense to do it that way? Does it make sense to bring it into the app? Does it make sense to partner with other friendly companies who have networking software? Who knows? But absolutely, we have found investors love talking about their investments, sharing their strategies, sharing tips, helping each other with the emotional side of investing is the other biggest part, because we recognize that is one of the biggest risks when it comes to investing, is your emotions getting the better of you and panic selling or making irrational decisions, and having thousands of other investors talking you off the edge is which happens a fair amount
10 days ago, I think was it Wednesday or Thursday? It was a couple of weeks ago. Was quite a heavy night
big
for the
pullback,
markets. It was a big pullback, and that Facebook Investors Club was going off, and I think better there than in your portfolio.
Yeah. and it's almost like a tension release. You see people saying, "Wow, that was a night," and then there's 5,000
or who's staying up tonight? Who's staying up? Not portfolio, but just to watch what's unfolding, because we're in this like really interconnected world, aren't we? And we are absolutely influenced, by what's happening overseas.
You go back in time, maybe even only just like say 10 years ago, and the markets pull back. They're freaking out. They're calling their old school stockbroker, sell everything, or they're getting some advice from their uncle and making really dumb decisions. Now, at least, I guess the crowd self-regulates everybody else to a certain degree.
Yes.
We're very impressed with our crowd. It is amazing the conversations that happen and all the, I want to say, myths about how people do behave. It's amazing how self-regulating and how when someone comes in with an idea that the crowd does not agree with, they very calmly and very patiently educate each other, which is fascinating.
It is fascinating.
The giving nature of investors is great.
It's interesting. Like I can't remember the name of some of them.
Yeah.
I think I'm part of maybe 3 or 4
Yeah.
of these Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, there's always really, really good questions that are asked.
Yeah.
And then every now and then you'll see somebody who's one of these, I guess, hoity-toity know-it-alls, and they just go in there saying, "Now do it like this, do it like that," but then really quickly you just wait 30 seconds and somebody else comes along and puts them in their place, because this is the place to learn. It's not the place to prove how much you know.
That's right.
Absolutely. And it is a great place for myth busting, even when it comes to, and we've noticed it with even other forums and chat groups when they're talking about different investing platforms. The crowd self-regulates. If someone comes in and makes a bold claim about Hatch that's wildly untrue, within seconds, someone will say, "Oh, I've actually just spoken to them," because we do have a very close relationship with our investors. "I've just spoken to them. That's actually not how it works," and we're completely hands off.
The power of community.
It's amazing.
And those social networking platforms tapped into that. It's the power of community.
And also
amazing.
a great source of innovation, because you can then start to see some needs that they may not be able to express, but they do it amongst themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a great testing ground for us. We've started in the last few months to test new features, put prototypes up on our Investors Club. So, I mean, they're engaged investors, so we can show them this is what we're thinking, rip into it. And we get great, insightful feedback, and they get the things that they want to see, which is really cool.
Yeah. Best of your ability, call them whatever you want, but if you were to categorize some of these types of investors, who are these people that are playing the game on Hatch?
We've got kind of these 5 personalities. One is newcomer, so we know that we've got probably a quarter of our investors are new to investing and or new to global share investing.
Okay. And that's really interesting, because that just showcases that for the first time there's something interesting enough to inspire them to start, which is we love that. That's cool.
So they tend to start with something they know. So if it's a Slack, they use Slack every day and they wanted to get into that IPO and just get a sense. So they might hold a share for a period of time and just learn about investing that way. So understand kind of the the macroeconomic factors and the earnings and why shares are going up and down. And so it's just this very intense education, but hands-on and almost an investment in education. And they view that by saying, look, I might throw $500 into something, but that's my financial literacy and investment in myself. So there's kind of this newcomer group. Then there's passive investors, and that's growing worldwide. I mean, passive investments being exchange traded funds. There's a group of them that just come in and want to access. We've got over 500 exchange traded funds, anything from robotics to ARC innovation to the NASDAQ 100, and then the obvious ones being S&P 500 and so on and so forth. So they're just building portfolios where they're setting and forgetting, and portfolios of exchange traded funds. Then we get are active investors, how I would call them. And I'd suggest they're quite sophisticated. So you have people building these core satellite funds and actually building their entire portfolios. And these people know what they're doing. And so and willing to share those portfolios.
They've been waiting for years for the ability to execute their plan.
So they kind of build their core with passive funds, and then they add these satellite funds on the side, which might be specialized or might be tech companies or so on and so forth. So really
that's how they're getting
doing a lot of research. This is their hobby. And then we've got, the growth. And so they're using Hatch just to get in to kind of see these growth or emerging industries. So be it growth companies, they know that some of these mega trends that we talked about, that's the long game. I mean, we're talking about shifts in demographics or in healthcare or in, emerging industries in electricity and Tesla. That would be a classic growth. Someone that knows this is, I'm kind of dabbling in Hatch to get into some of these things that I feel in 20 years are going to be transformational. That could be sustainability.
Future of entertainment, the future of electricity, the future of mobility, the future of healthcare. It's all go.
So the growth. And then the last one is that kind of value investor we notice. And they are ones that are deeply understanding the fundamentals of a company. And they're basically investing in it when they think the market's done something stupid and they can buy it at a discount. Right. So they're basically looking at this intrinsic value of this business. The market value isn't matching up at the moment, so I'm going to invest in this, and that's effectively how I'm going to buy low, sell high.
And you notice their activity increases a lot on Investors Club around annual report times and leading up to it, there's a lot of negotiation analysis of what they think might happen, whether or not it'll be over or undervalued. And
so pretty
that
active.
group becomes very excited around
But certainly don't have to be that active and sophisticated on Hatch, but that's the wide range that we see.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's good. I wouldn't mind, getting some clarity around the fees. I know that it is pretty clear based on what we can see in the platform there. It's $3 brokerage.
Yeah,
right?
$3 to buy or sell a fraction of a share, and it's 2 cents a share to buy one or more. So if you buy 1.1, 1.5 up to 399, it's a flat rate of $8 basically.
Okay.
And then 2 cents a share on top of that.
And then the foreign exchange stuff, you've got a partner for the foreign exchange.
Yeah.
And you're getting a little bit of a margin on the foreign exchange, right?
Yeah. It's basically adding 50 basis points onto the interbank rate, and that's pretty important because a lot of people compare us. We do get the odd person coming through saying, I have US dollars through my bank, they charge a lower fee, and we just say compare apples with apples, get our rate and get their rate, and you will find you will get a lot more American dollars by putting it through Hatch than you will through putting it through your bank.
There's still a lot of smoke and mirrors in that space.
Absolutely. And so that is one area that we have tried to demystify and de-jargon as much as possible and create complete transparency around our fees.
So the money's, who are you partnering with? Who's the broker that you're partnering with in the United States again?
Yep. They're called Drive Wealth. And
Drive
so
Wealth.
we send the money to our foreign exchange partner. We do banking every afternoon. It's intraday. So they basically just move the money that same day.
Okay.
So it hits the bank. So when Drive Wealth comes into the office, our money is sitting there. They allocate it to investors' accounts, and it's done.
Got it.
Ready to go.
The custodian of the money when it's sitting in the U.S. account is who?
The normal practice in the U.S. is called in-street name and custody. And so it's unlike New Zealand, which I think historically we've been used to having a share with our name on it. In the U.S., it actually doesn't work that way. It sits in custody on your behalf. So the custody in this case happens to be the largest bank in the world. It's ICBC, and it is a Chinese bank, but it's headquartered and domiciled in New York City, and so we happen to use their reputable company. There's there's all sorts of insurance, both for in the broker space and the custodial space in the U.S. Highly regulated industry, particularly since the GFC. So we've done significant amounts of due diligence on all of our partners and the money flow, and feel very comfortable with the partners and safety.
I think it's just really important to realize when you're investing in the US share markets that it's just fundamentally completely different to what we're used to in New Zealand. So we get a lot of people saying, oh, I'm used to having my name on the share certificate. And basically the reason for that is in the New Zealand share markets are still basically completely manual, that shares are swapped back and forth by humans. And in America, it's fully digital now. So as a move to the digital side meant a complete change in how things are done. And while on the surface it may feel quite different and maybe feel a bit risky to have your shares held in street name rather than having a physical share certificate, it actually reduces the risks of people stealing shares and that sort of stuff. So it actually adds a lot more security.
And adds efficiency as well.
Absolutely. Trading digitally would be impossible unless they did it this way.
Gotcha.
So it's not for any other reason than to allow safe and efficient digital markets to operate.
Yeah, otherwise it's just not possible.
Absolutely. And I think that's just it because the behind the scenes mechanics of the share markets are pretty hidden, and fair enough, no one really needs to know about them. But fundamentally, New Zealand is manual, US is digital, and that requires two quite different structures.
Okay. If people want to get some more information around that or anything else, what's the best way for people to actually ask you guys some questions?
We go to our contact page, open a live chat in the app. We have, it's usually Kristen and I and a couple of others sitting on the other end. Yeah. But we do try and give out as much information as possible in our FAQs, but keep it at a level that's not, sometimes too much information can be too much for some people and it's actually detrimental. So any extra questions, just ask us. We have a lot more information.
That's hatchinvest.nz.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. Okay, well, we'll leave it there, and I'll put a bunch of stuff on the show notes. So if people want to find out, links to how to set up their own account or anything like that, then just head on over to the show notes and you can figure it all out.
Cool.
But
And
thank you
get
again
in
very
touch
much.
if you need to.
Yeah, get in touch if you need to. That's the main thing. Just talk, ask questions.
Yeah, we are humans.
You are humans
We do
after all.
not use automated chatbots.
Good on you. So far.
Yeah.
No deep fakes in this place. So thank you very much again,
Thanks, Darcy.
Natalie and Kirsten. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Next
you.
That
time.
was fun.
Cheers.